just a little bit of background about myself and our firm. Our firm, Altman and Barrett Architects, specializes in K-12 design across the state of Georgia. Like Mr. Ernest said, our main headquarters is out of Hayhira with one stoplight, not much happening over there, but I'm sure you guys are familiar with Hayhira. And then our second office is in Atlanta. In the last 10 years alone, we've done over $700 million worth of K-12 design. To name a few that you may be familiar with, I'm just going to rattle off the first that come to my mind. Bainbridge, Cook, Worth, Wheeler, Lamar, Houston County, Wheeler County, Blakely County, Lawrence County. You get the picture. So we work left, right, top and bottom all across the state. Through those years of experience, we've learned one thing to be true, and that's every single school system across the state of Georgia functions differently. Everybody has different feelings about large concepts of how you teach, from things like, do you push into the classroom, do you pull out of the classroom, do you have small resource rooms, do you have large resource rooms, how you do end of the year testing, to even small concepts like, do your kids carry backpacks? Does everyone have a Chromebook? Do you like lockers? Do you not like lockers? Do you give athletic lockers to your kids? And so because of that, we do not copy paste, for lack of a better term, any of our projects. They're all custom made to match the faculty and staff and what they've asked for. So everyone at our firm is the child of an educator. So I'm the daughter of a teacher. The owners of our firm are all sons of teachers. And so because of that, we feel that throughout education, a lot of times people feel that the administration makes choices that doesn't match what the teachers want. So to prevent that, I personally come and will meet with every single human being that will work in this building. Every janitor, every kitchen staff, every office staff, every SLP, English as a second language, nurse, all of your teachers, CTAE. If you work in this building, you will meet with me. And during those time periods, we'll break it into more categorized groups. I'll show that schedule in a moment. I'll be asking you pointed questions to probe you about what you would like to see in your classroom. That's going to be happening after you come back from spring break, that week after spring break. So what I'm here doing today is two things. The first, I'm hoping to trigger points of thought for you to start thinking about until I see you then. So when we have our time together, it's been spent in a valuable, meaningful way. And the things you want to see are communicated to me instead of just you walking into a meeting and it's the first time you've heard from me. And the second is because, I'm choking a little bit. The second is because as employees of the system, I want you to be good stewards of the message of why we need to do this project. So that way, if you get stopped by your neighbor, your babysitter, or someone in the grocery store asks you, why are we even doing this project, you can be a great representative of the message. Does anyone have a bottle of water nearby? Essentially? Sorry, thank you. Okay, so to start off how we got here, I'm just going to give you a little background information. Does this scroll just this way? Will this do 2-page view?
Yeah, it'll do anything.
Does anyone know how to? Oh my goodness. Okay, so about a year ago, I came through all of your facilities within the system. I came through with the structural engineer, a plumbing engineer, a mechanical engineer, an electrical engineer, a civil engineer, myself, who I'm a mechanical engineer and my master's is in architecture, so I'm a little bit of both, and then 2 architects, and then a roofing contractor, and a person who has construction experience. We walked through as a little herd, and we did evaluations of all of your facilities. At that point in time, we went through and identified what would need to be repaired in a renovation to bring Seminole County school system up to speed with a 21st century school, so that you would be equivalent to what your peers are providing as far as facilities goes across the state of Georgia. When we do that, we then give you a health indicator that tells you what's the health and wellness of your current buildings and where do you fall. If you can't read this, that's fine. The color gradient should point it out clearly enough for you. So if you're in green, you're doing great, phenomenal. That's basically you just built the school and you've moved into it. If you're over here, it means you should have already replaced your school. If you fall in this category, it means you better do something quickly because your buildings are what we classify as very poor. And we would then proceed to go into a planning period to correct why they are very poor. So when we do that, we have to justify to the state and obviously to the taxpayers in the area how we landed there. So we break this down into multiple categories. The first portion is your elementary school. Your elementary school was built in all kinds of different editions and all kinds of different years. 1950, 1957, 1966. You can see these are all different buildings in your elementary school. Thank you so much. So because of this, you cannot just say, oh, because a building was built in 1950, it means it doesn't work. Some buildings are still highly functioning of a 1950 era in the state of Georgia. Unfortunately, that's not the case here. You can see they're not doing well. Now, in buildings that were built recently, they may have a better health indicator. So we go through at the micro level, and that allows us to look at the bigger picture. To get to these numbers and these health, we then go through and we identify everything that needs to be adjusted. This is the high school level at both, and I'm going to point out some things at the high school in a moment. Okay, so we look at, what do we look at to get to those prices? The first is safety, life safety violations. Safety has changed since Columbine happened. I'm sure everybody in this room is aware of that. But as designers and architects, we take a training on a yearly basis, and that allows us to identify what we need to be doing to make our campuses more safe. In a school, a combined K-12 school of your size, the most amount of exterior doors, and I'm talking the most amount of exterior doors, should be of the magnitude of 20. Within Seminole County school system, at the elementary school alone, you have 60 plus exterior doors. And this school, I'm sure you're all very familiar with, has a magnitude of another 60 or so exterior doors. Let's see, 103. So we have 163 exterior doors in this system when you should have something around a number of 20 to 25. And we can all use our imagination as why exterior doors would be a safety issue. The snippet you're seeing down here at the bottom of the page is a double teaming problem we've got going on here. So when you have exterior doors, you've now made yourself open, literally, to someone coming in. But the second issue with that is we live in South Georgia. We have high HVAC bills without having exterior doors. At this moment in time, Seminole County is basically paying to condition the outside. This is your monthly power bill at one school, and then your monthly power bill at the other. You're paying somewhere of a magnitude of $55,000 to $60,000 a month for HVAC bills. Just to make sure you understand how high that is, Colquitt County High School, the brand new Colquitt County High School, is 300,000 square feet, roughly 3,500 students. You have maybe 1,100 students total? 1,300 students total. Their school power bill is $18,000 a month, and it's 3 times the size of this bill, of your schools. So I'll let that soak in for a moment. Okay, so then we go past Leo, we get it. The building's not as safe as it should be. It's costing us a fortune to run. But what else is going on with it? We then go through and we identify code violations. Okay, I want to say something before I go into this chapter so that everyone hears me loud and clear. Code violations do not mean you are in an unsafe building. That's not what this chapter means. This means that codes have changed since 1950 when the elementary school was built, and since 1992 when this school was built, when it was under design. That is the nature of the beast with codes. They have to be updated every 3 years. And when that happens, we get more and more intelligent as construction professionals and architects about what's safe in construction. The reason why we point this out is because under Georgia law, if you renovate more than 50% of a building, you are required by law to correct every code violation that you have within the school. Every mechanical, electrical, structural, plumbing code violation. Well, how do we hit 50%? We do a re-roof, we do an HVAC, we do some paint and some flooring, and boom, you've hit 50% because we've touched the whole building. So you can see it becomes very, very costly to try to renovate these buildings and bring them up to code. We went through, we write down every single code violation that we would have to fix at all of of your schools, mechanical, electrical. Now we're into plumbing. These lists are all different issues. Civil, fire protection, site lighting, lighting in general, intercom, low voltage, power, security systems, data and voice. That was just the elementary, by the way. We haven't gotten to the high school yet. Structural. And I'm going to pause on structural for a second here because this is an unusual one that is really only burdening Seminole County. We very rarely see a structural code violation. When Hurricane Michael came through, y'all know, years back, and we had all the work done to try to fix it. What Hurricane Michael did was it took your roof and basically pulled it back away from the building. At that point in time, your structure was ripped from where they're all connected to one another, ripped in that moment, and then came back down. We are seeing major structural issues that have been aftermath of that condition. We're identifying them here, but these types of things are expensive to fix because all the structure is connected to one another. Some things are things you would never even notice. You're going to be walking on your day in and day out basis and it would never point out your attention. But to me, this is a major issue. This here at a header point and then below is a major issue. You can't really tell it, but what's happening here, this is a fixed framed window. This was a type of construction that was done in 1950. Fixed frame windows should never move. If they crack next to a control joint break like this, it means you have serious structural problems within the building. This is only at the elementary school right here. This has also happened at the high school. Unfortunately, right now, you would not be able to look over and look at it because it looks like they've filled it in. But the high school, your kitchen in this cafeteria is having structural problems. We've now filled them in to try to prevent any more of it going on. But that whole wall, and the wall in the kitchen, and the kitchen wall that bounds it is also falling in this category. Okay, so all of these are problems. I know you're thinking, okay, we get it, Leah, we're not doing well. How do we fix it? So, and this is here at the high school. This used to be over there. I don't even know if y'all can tell what's going on here. But these are broken masonry wall ties and your bond beam reinforcing has broken. Okay, so we get through this. Now what do? We got to fix all these problems. The state gives you money for two reasons. The two reasons that they give you money to build a new school is, one, if you age out. If you hit 40 years, bing, 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 you win an award. You don't have to do much more to prove it because you've aged out of the building. So the elementary school has already passed that, right? The second way you receive money from the state is if it is deemed too costly to make corrections to renovate a building. And that's where we're going to talk about the high school. So the high school has two major infrastructure problems going on right now. The first is all of your water lines have begun to pinhole. And I'm sure some of you have trash cans in your ceiling in your classrooms. I've been in a few that have the ceiling tiles missing and you have big trash cans collecting the water. That is because in the 1990s, the United States did not have special testing. Special testing is when you order materials and it's randomly pulled when they get to the job site. So they order the copper piping nowadays. They pull a piece of copper, they take it to a testing lab, they determine that the copper is truly made of the mechanical breakdown that we need to see for copper to be what it is. In the 90s, we were doing trading with China, and we were accepting lower quality copper from China. And if anyone can remember 5 years back, we were doing the same thing with structural steel in the United States. If you're not in this industry, it may not have even come across your newsfeed. Anyway, because of that, you have low quality copper piping in this school that cannot be corrected. Those teeny tiny pinholes, the only way to fix it is for us to rerun all of your water lines throughout this whole school. Those water lines are, in most places, in block walls. And so because of that, it's very costly to get into those block walls to get them out. The second infrastructure issue we're having out here is your sewer lines are not doing well either. And we have roof leaks, which I know these are things you guys deal with every day, so I don't have to repeat myself. When you have 3 major infrastructure problems like that span the entire floor plan of your school, go in every wall and every ceiling, you can imagine how costly it is for us to go in and try to fix those 3. So then the state says, prove it to us, do a cost analysis and turn it in. So we've already taken care of that. And then they determine, all right, we, the state of Georgia, are going to give you money to build a new school. So let's start there. The state of Georgia gives you money to build a new school with 2 different methodologies. One is if you're a standard school. The second is if you are considered low wealth project specific. And lucky us, that is what y'all are considered. And I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I'm just going to be crystal clear about what that is. Low wealth project specific means you are the bottom 40 poorest county in the state of Georgia. And the state says then, let us help you. Instead of putting the burden on your taxpayers, who you could never raise the E-SPLOS in a million years to pay for a new school, it's not possible, we will step in and get involved. So if you were a normal school, you would be getting anywhere between $75 and $85 a square foot to build a new school. When you are low wealth project specific, they give you somewhere, and this fluctuates slightly, between $190 and $193 a square foot. 2.2 times what everyone else in the state is getting to build a new school. That low wealth project specific funding has only been around since 2006. So if you're wondering, well, why didn't we do it when we built this school? It was not a thing when you built this school, okay? The caveat to receiving that money from the state, so you've proven you need it, the state has agreed you need it, they have it sitting there, you have to do one thing to ensure you get it. You have to have evidence of a past E-SPLOS renewal, which is coming up in November. Without that past E-SPLOS renewal, the state will not give you that money because they say, listen, we're giving you a lot of money. We want to see proof that you're going to give us that 5-year E-SPLOS. You give one 5-year E-SPLOS, and we give you that remaining portion of the amount of money to finish this project, which is a pretty nice deal compared to what everyone else is doing. Okay, so now what we're trying to do is figure out how we're gonna, I'll skip through these because we don't need to remind ourselves of what's going on in every single room. You get the point that we have major problems going on. I mean, I think we're still only at the elementary school at this point. Okay, all right, so now we've just talked about how they're going to give you this large sum of money, right? Now the next question is, Leah, why are you telling us to build a K through 12? All right, I know that K through 12 automatically sparks people to have reservations. I totally understand that. The first thing everyone says is, I do not want my 5-year-old, I don't want my 7-year-old to be in the same proximity of a 17-year-old. I also would not want that. So, let me say why we need to do it. The first reason is because the state funds the school at square footage amounts. If you build an elementary school, you get 1,875 square foot per instructional unit. If you build a middle school, you get something like 2250 a square foot per instructional unit. If you build a high school, you get 2850 instructional unit, unless you build a K through 12. Then you get 2850 times all of your instructional units. That's the only time they reward you, because the state basically says, thank you for building one school, fixing all of your problems at one time, and because of that, we're going to give you more square footage to do it. Why does that matter to you? It should matter to you because the difference between that 1800 and that 2850 is that special services suite spaces that you all need to function. That's your not instructional unit programs. Things like, I don't know who's in here teaches resource or special ed pullout, but those are pullout rooms. Those are additional computer labs. Those are If you need I'm trying to think of us, OT-PT rooms, those are a second severe and profound room. Those are all the things that a school needs to actually function that the state doesn't pay for, gets picked up in those extra square footages. So we want to get all that square footage at the most amount of money because we want to do this right and kind of tap the state for all they're going to give us at one time. The second reason is because we, as a system here, have to do a complete reset. If you take money from the state, you have to wait 20 more years until you can draw down again. This school cannot wait another 20 years. So if you said, well, Leah, let's just fix the elementary school, that they're worse off, let's help them out. That's fine, but you're going to be in this building for another 20 years, and it has major problems, and the state's not going to give you a dime to renovate it because you just drew down on the elementary school. You can't do two separate projects at once. Okay, so now how do we do a K through 12 and keep them separate? So we did some master plan studies, and I'm going to repeat myself here. We have not designed your school. Nothing you're going to see on this page is your school. All this is a glorified bubble diagram that says this amount of square footage that we have to build to do your school would fit on this piece of property. That's all this is. When I meet with you and I hear what you need, then you will start to see what your school is. A lot of times people see these and they think this is your floor plan. It is not. It's just art at this point. Okay, so we studied what pieces of property do we already own? Can we save some money there? So we looked at potentially building it on the elementary school site. Not great conditions. It doesn't really work out for what we need. The negatives out here, there's a bunch, but the negatives out here is now we have a split athletic campus where our athletics for our high school and middle school students are detached, which we never want to do because a couple reasons. One, high school students drive like nutcases to get to their athletics because they want to be there on time. The second is because in lower socioeconomic areas, not everybody can drive. And so we want to make it where they can leave school and walk to baseball, walk to soccer, walk to tennis if need be so that it's fair for everybody. And the other reason is because then you only have to have things like insurance policies on one piece of property. So this isn't really that great of an option, but it could potentially work. We looked at the cost. It was way more costly to do it. We looked at another option of doing it that way. Then we looked at just tearing down this school and building a portion across the road or that way across this little gully you have. We thought that looked a little bit better, so then we said, well, let's look at a master plan of how it could look as one whole campus. If we were going to say, let's abandon the other piece of property entirely. I'm kind of cropping this a little bit, but I want you to be able to see it better. Okay, so this is long-term master planning. Long-term master planning. This is what we would say would be your final result, what we would recommend you do. This is a K through 12 campus. This is a new football stadium out here. That way you can get rid of that piece of property and sell that whole chunk of land because we want to try to make money from these decisions as well. If you leave the Board of Education office out there and the stadium out there, it's very difficult to make that appealing to a buyer because you still have the corner pieces of it. So we're looking long-term, maybe doing a football stadium out here, keeping this cafeteria area that we're in right now. I apologize. The gymnasium is a beautiful gymnasium. Okay, that is something we want to tap into and renovate whatever we can at small function areas to make it still here because you can use a gymnasium for so much, right? You get funded from the state to build another gymnasium. But we're greedy and we want to, right? We want to have middle school basketball at the same time as high school basketball. We want to have whatever it may be happening at two different places. So we want to keep this one. And that way we can tie together and have one whole athletic complex. If you're familiar with Colquitt County, that would be like Packer Park. Have you ever been out there? And then one whole academic complex. Okay, so when we talk about doing a pre-K through 12 school, at that point, we are looking at doing a mini city. It really is that complicated because now we're inducing additional problems that we didn't have out here currently in our new plan. So we have to be considerate of things like parent stacking is going to be significantly longer than it ever could be out here because now we have small children whose parents come, they love their kid more than anybody else, they wait at 10 o'clock in the morning to pick them up at the end of the day. We have to have multiple bus drop-offs. Why do we want multiple bus drop-offs, Leah? They all ride the bus together. Who cares? I care because we're trying to tell them you are going to an elementary school. You are entering an elementary school. You're getting dropped off at elementary school. The middle school and high school students continue to ride on because they're going to two different schools now. Middle school gets dropped off at their wing. They enter the middle school. The high school keeps riding the bus, whoever still rides the bus at high school, and then they get dropped off at their bus drop-off. Because it's not just about, making it the simplest pinpoint. It's about the experience of the human being that's going to be going through this whole building their entire lifetime. So when they get dropped off at the elementary school, that child is going to enter a building that looks dramatically different than what working environment you're going to be in. There's going to be primary colors. At the elementary school level, you learn through exposure alone. So multiplication factors painted on the stair treads, rulers along the wall, experiencing scale and color and orientation. That will all be happening at their level. At the high school level, we are getting children ready to go to either tech school, to the job, to the workforce, or to college. And so it needs to be a much more mature, dignified environment. That's what we're trying to set the tone for. So the interior design and the aesthetic will look completely different between the two. The other thing you will do is you will not, unless I'm otherwise told, be able to physically enter either school from either side. It will be impossible. If you want to go from the elementary school to the high school, you will have to exit the elementary school's office, sign out, go around to the high school entrance, sign in, and then be let in. There is no point of crossover, because if there's a point of crossover for y'all, then that's a point of crossover for a student. They're clever. They can figure it out. The only school that has chosen to add one door, I'm doing Wheeler County's pre-K through 12 right now, they have chosen to add one door, and 5 people in the system have badge access, and that is because they can only afford to pay for one OT, one PT, one ESL, and one SLP. And so because of that, they badge back and forth to pull their population into their offices. I'm doing Clinch County right now, and their superintendent told me point blank that she never wants a middle school student to ever even see a high school student on that campus. And so that whole building is layered where you can't enter the high school stair from the middle school side. You can't get from the middle school side to the high school stair. And so it's complicated to understand now, but just trust me when I tell you that in the next year and a half of design, we will also make it so you cannot cross both paths. Things like playgrounds. They will be oriented in your building where a high school student who's cussing, I know everyone has angels, but a high school student who is cussing outside will not be able to be seen or heard from children who are playing on the playground at the elementary school side. It's extreme. We take it to the next level because safety is our #1 concern of the whole campus. Okay, so when we do this, we save a lot of money and effort about not having to redo any of our athletics. We're all on one campus. And at this point, we've solved all of our fundamental issues that we have going on with our current facilities. So now what are we doing? We're doing the fun part. This is when you guys get to get your voices heard. This is probably not 100% correct because I just took your master schedule, which to somebody who's not in the educational system is extremely overwhelming. But I took your master schedule and I kind of tried to figure out who was in planning 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th for our high school, and then who was in planning for the middle school. And if your name is Cannon, I'm hoping you cannot be in planning on that period. If you are, it's okay. We can work with it. But what we're going to do is the week that you get back from spring break, the first day, that Monday, I'm going to be meeting with all of your maintenance as a whole, then all of your IT, then all of your food service, then your janitorial, your BOE staff, your bus drivers, if you'd like. I mean, everybody who works the system matters to me. Then the second day, that Tuesday, we'll go through the majority of your gen ed teachers at the elementary school. Then on Wednesday, we go to the high school. And then on Thursday, we go to the middle school. We're trying at the middle school to do 6th, 7th, and 8th together so that because there's a lot of questions that apply to you as a unit. Then Friday, Anybody who did not see me, they were sick that day, they were absent, whatever it may be, if they can come in on Friday, that's my catch-all for the remaining portions of the people that are left. I'll bring in a team of 3 or 4 people, and as I'm speaking with you, it'll be recorded and we'll be annotating our entire conversation. So then I leave and I begin to design your school to match all the things you ask for. So if you do hydroponics, I would need to know that. If you teach high school chemistry, do you use a fume hood? Does all the science teachers need a fume hood? Do you use compressed air? Does the physics have a racetrack inside of it? If you teach CTAE, are you doing ag? Do you do tractor driving as a lesson? Do you do lawnmower pulling, whatever it may be? You would be shocked what happens in the ag parks across the state. If you're going to house pigs, things like that, I would need to know. Do you pressure wash your pigs? It literally goes on and on. Then from this time I meet you, I'll work all summer long to make it match exactly what you want. I will then come back at the end of August, so I'll let you get back into school so I'm not just overwhelming you because I know that's a tough time. End of August, beginning of September, with your floor plan. I am not perfect. At that point, it will not be 100% right. There's so many people, so many different cogs in the machine. I will give you a red pen and I'll point out your room, where you are in the building, what you're in relation to, where the nearest toilet bank is, where the nearest teacher toilet is, because I know that's very important to a lot of people. And then I'll let you red pen anything that's not right. It will not hurt my feelings. If it's on paper, it's free to move. We want to move it when it's on paper, not when we're in construction. Then I go back, make all of your corrections, and then at the beginning of November, I will then show you your floor plan, which will at that point be 99.9% correct, because we've done 2 iterations, and we'll pick up any details. At that last meeting, I'm going to be showing you things like cabinetry details, shelving units in the art classroom, flat file drying racks. Do you have a kiln? How much dry rack storage do you have in your kiln room? And I'll let you make sure you'll sign off saying, yes, this is what I want. I'm also extremely transparent. So if you have asked for something that I find to be a little bit more of a wish list item that I do not think we will be able to afford, I will then list those items in that last meeting, and we will have a come to Jesus meeting as a whole, and I will say things like, let's prioritize these 10. Which of these 3 are sacred to you? Which of them are not? Which ones, if I cannot fight for them to stay in the budget, can we look at removing? Because we're all, working within the means of what we can afford. We're not designing in a bubble here. And that's how this will go. So then after that point in November is when you will start to see images of what the school looks like. And this part, from the moment I meet you today until then, is the most painful part of the process for everybody, because everybody wants to see a painting of what the building looks like. But unless we take our time and do the process correctly and get every room correctly, the painting that we would show you would be inaccurate if I showed it in advance, right? Because the floor plan directly correlates to what the building's exterior looks like. Not every room needs a window, you know what I mean? So you just have to bear with me that we're going to be working as a unit until we can show them publicly. After I have met with you, the next question is, well, the public wants to tell you, my husband wants to tell you his opinion. He's been in construction for 40 years and he wants to tell you what's going on. That's fine. Everybody will get a Meet the Architect night in the county. We will publicly advertise in the newspaper, we'll do social media on it. But it is my firm belief that the people who run the ship day in and day out, input should be at the forefront of my design before I get in front of the community. And the reason why is because if I did not meet with you first, I would not know. If I met with the ag teacher and he says, listen, we have to have 2 greenhouses because we're doing ferns that we sell in the one time in this one, and we're doing perennials in the other. If I get in front of the community and they see 2 greenhouses and I have not met with you first, they'll tell me, we don't need 2 greenhouses. And then I'm not armed with the information to defend why we have it in the budget. When I meet with you first, I get to say, well, actually, I met with Mr. Smith and he does this, and that's why we have 2. So it just makes us as a unit function better when we present our entire project. Okay, so at this point, we pull up, let's see, our project schedule, and then I'll take questions. I know everyone has families they're trying to get home to. Okay, so Elementary school and high school faculty and staff input is yesterday and today. Our meeting to kick us off is yesterday and today. We're going ahead, as Mr. Ernest alluded to, and interviewing for our advertising for our construction manager to get on our team. That process takes roughly 50 days, so we won't know who they are until about May. And then we go in, all this other stuff doesn't really matter to you. Then we go into the second week of April with all of our programming. We then start making all of our site applications with all of the research we've been doing on the piece of property that was purchased. We go into schematic designs. And all of this to say is that it puts you in the building at the absolute earliest, if everything goes according to plan, which we're still so early on, August of 2022. You'd be in the building, and the contractor would still be finalizing demolition of the elementary school building, demolition of this building, some site improvements by December of 2022, January of 2023. So we're still a long way out, right? I mean, did I say 2022? 2024.
Yeah.
Whoever chimed in there, I appreciate that. It's like, that's not the feedback I thought I'd hear. 2024.
That's probably just takes a couple of years.
Yeah. So at least 3 more years, 4 more years at worst case scenario. So we still have a long time going. At this point, I'm going to stop and let you guys ask any questions about the process, comments, concerns. I'm pretty much here all night, so.